Labor created Medicare, universal health care, and if I'm Prime Minister, I will make quality, affordable childcare universal too.
The Albanese government has always been ambitious about childcare. There was another step forward today as the Prime Minister unveiled childcare pledges Labor takes into the looming federal election campaign.
Today I announced that our government is establishing a $1 billion Building Early Education Fund. This is the single biggest investment by an Australian government ever in new childcare services, starting with building or expanding over 160 early education and care centres where they are needed most.
Hello. Hello.
I'll get down.
The PM's first promise is funding to build childcare centres in the so-called childcare deserts of outer metropolitan and regional Australia, where childcare facilities are largely absent.
Our government wants to see more centres built in the regions and the suburbs and more centres located at local schools.
The funding model doesn't deliver the supply response because people can't turn a dollar to actually provide childcare in the bush. So what this does is it's a government intervention. It's the creation of a $1 billion fund, which is about intervening in the market to make sure that we deliver this essential service.
We have heard the idea before of using primary school sites as a home for new childcare centres, even if it got lost in the maelstrom of the ABC learning collapse and the global financial crisis.
They've got to drop one kid off at childcare, miles away from wherever the school is, over to the school, drop the next kid off, and then off into work. It takes hours of parents' time in the morning. It is a huge intrusion on family life.
The government is also promising a huge shift in the equity of the childcare system, the removal of the so-called activity test. That's the restriction that limits access to childcare places to people who are working or studying.
It's acting as a real barrier, particularly for kids from low disadvantaged backgrounds, to access early childhood education and care. And through abolishing the activity test, we're going to be able to lift that access, and that has lifelong consequences.
It just seemed completely unacceptable that 124,000 children, mostly from single mother families, low income families, First Nation families, missed out on that opportunity.
In addition to the advantage for kids, removing the activity test is also seen as providing a boost to women's participation in the workforce and lifting many out of a fiendish poverty trap.
It really set up a catch-22. So for women, they could not gain employment unless they had childcare, but they could not gain childcare unless they had work.
Access to childcare is one thing, but the biggest issue affecting voters right now is its affordability. Economist Angela Jackson has just completed a report on how young families are the ones doing it toughest on the cost of living, largely because of huge increases in the cost of childcare despite recent government fee relief.
In the last 12 months alone, childcare fees have gone up by over 10%. Just as a way of comparison, in the last 12 months, cost of living for young parents with young families have gone up by around 6.1% versus self-funded retirees at the other end of the spectrum who've seen their cost of living go up by around 2.8%.
Part of the reason for the big increase in fees is the way governments have subsidised childcare since the 1990s. It's been done via subsidies paid to parents rather than to childcare providers. And that often means that when the subsidy goes up, so do the childcare centres' fees.
Each time they increase the subsidy, the cost of childcare just catches up and it grows incredibly quickly.
The push is on for a fundamental reworking of the way childcare is funded, from subsidies to parents to payments to childcare providers.
You can actually drive a system rather than just actually hand parents a voucher and get them to go off and shop for a service, which makes it very hard to control the behaviour of providers.
The proposal that's on the table are supply-side subsidies. The way that these work it's the government saying, look, this is effectively the efficient price of early childhood education and care for given areas.
Today, the government announced it would start working on developing that efficient price, which the government would pay to childcare providers. The ambition would be that parents would face the same fee at whichever childcare centre they used.
So at the moment, the system is underpinning some quite significant profits, particularly by those private equity firms in the for-profit sector, and not delivering high quality access to Australian families at a price that they can really afford.
But it is a complex transition to manage.
It's not simple. You've got everything from Good Start, the largest provider, through to mum and dad investors. And so striking a reasonable, efficient price that means that high quality services that can be provided is not a trivial exercise.